everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. It's so great to see everyone and more people. Hi. My name's Angel. I'm going to be the MC for the night. I'm a client success manager here at Hustle and super excited to host all of y'all. So thank you so much for coming out. To get started, we're going to have our CEO, Roddy Lindsay, come out and just give a little talk about what we do here at Hustle. Woo!
Thank you, Angel. Thank you so much, guys, for coming here. I think we expected like 50 people to come, and we had 200 plus people, and 100 people on the wait list. So, like, absolutely incredible turnout. So we will definitely do more, and hopefully have a bigger venue and let everyone in. But thank you guys for being here today. We really have some amazing talks, including Hustle's own Arianna, who built this pretty awesome thing you'll see in a second. But a little bit about Hustle. So Hustle started 2.5 years ago, and our mission is to strengthen organizations by scaling genuine human relationships. We build tools to help organizations do real organizing by doing one-on-one messaging at scale. So we help groups like, we helped the Clinton and the Sanders campaign last year. We work with groups like Planned Parenthood, HRC, UFCW, and help them really connect with people using the power of text messaging. So we are, I wouldn't go home, I wouldn't sleep well tonight if I didn't plug the fact that we're hiring in engineering, sales, and a bunch of other things. So please, if you're interested or know someone who wants to work at an awesome mission-driven tech company, please check out our website or come talk to me. And with that, I'll turn it over back to Angel.
Great, yeah. So thanks, Roddy. Not gonna fall on my laptop, I promise. So yeah, this is our first Women Who Build event, and we have some incredible women on the panel going to be giving some great talks today. I'm super delighted to have one of my coworkers be presenting, Arianna. She is a software engineer here at Hustle and built an amazing tool called DonateForDonald.org, and she's going to give some insights into how she designed that. Next we have Jen. Jen is currently a software engineer at Code for America, and where she works on products that help make government services accessible to all. And she's very passionate about civic engagement and spends her spare time serving as a technical lead on Resistbot. Anybody in here has used Resistbot before? Woo! You're amazing. And so, she helps people reach their elected officials. And then lastly, we have Suelyn, who was a former lead product manager. Woo! That's for Suelyn. That's all for Suelyn. Who was a former lead product manager for Hillary for America. And Suelyn designed a lot of their tech, was a designer for their tech engagement team, and is going to be giving an amazing talk on designing at scale for the Hillary campaign. So this is really exciting. And so I'm going to go ahead and take a seat and let Suelyn kick it off for us.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Thanks, guys. This is, I was asked to give a 7-minute talk. This was originally a 45-minute talk, so we'll try to move fast with the slides. Cool. So my name is Suelyn. I'm a designer and product manager. I currently work for an education company called Chalk Schools. But last year I moved to New York when my company was bought within a week to join the 80-person tech team of the Hillary campaign. I was one of 15 designers and product managers building tech to support the entire campaign organization. So I wanted to just kind of give you guys an overview of like what our tech organization is. A lot of people don't even know what tech is on a campaign. Honestly, people on the campaign thought we were IT for a really long time. We sat right next to IT, and so it's a fair question to ask, like what does tech on a campaign actually do? And so who's here has heard of the ladder of engagement? Okay, so pretty good. So this is actually a pretty common campaign framework that explains how people even think about engaging people on a campaign. And this is how we set up the tech team on the Hillary campaign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about ladder of engagement, which will kind of teach about what that is, but also talk about how we worked with the rest of the campaign, because the campaign tech team was organized around Scrum teams that worked on each metric of the ladder of engagement, and I'll show you examples of what each team built in order to move those metrics. So at the first rung of ladder of engagement is observer. These are people who are just getting started, just getting to know Hillary, and the goal of the observer team is to get eyeballs, right? Get views, get clicks, and then eventually get those people to actually give us their information. So you're list building, you're building email lists, you're building text lists, you're trying to get the first name and last name so that you can reach them when you need to get out the vote. So this team, they built the website, right? They built the CMS. They created tools for our content and digital team to make as many pieces of content as possible on the website. And we had lots of light boxes, which is not my favorite UI pattern, but it works, to get your email address and your zip code, and that was for list building. We also did a lot of interesting storytelling to try to get you into the content, understand her policies more personally, and so this is an example of that, where you could play with these little sliders to see how Hillary's college plan could help you save money. And this type of storytelling was used to engage people more deeply, and then eventually, we would get your email address and phone number so we could get you to vote later. So once we, know who you are, know how to contact you, we wanted to make sure you were going to vote. So this is the voter team. Their core metric was to get people to vote for Hillary on election day. You might think that's just one really clear metric. There's actually a lot of things that go up to that too, right? So we want you to make sure you're registered to vote. We want to see if you have your absentee ballot, if you are going to be there. We want to make sure you know where your polling location is, where your address is. And so they built things like iwillvote.com, which is a really simple way for you to put in your information and figure out how you can vote. So next, after we know you're going to vote, we're going to ask for some money. And this is a donor. And it's not just asking for money once. Under donor, there's different levels. So first, we want to ask you to be a one-time donor, then save your credit card to become a recurring donor. Once we think you're a recurring donor, hey, maybe since you have money, you might know some other people with money. Will you be a raiser? And so we want to move people up the ladder of engagement with money as well. And so, they built our core donation flow, which was mobile responsive, optimized. We did probably like 50 optimized lead tests to make everything to see what would actually increase donations. They also ran our shop, because all merch ends up being for donations too. And they even built special tools like this Raiser tool, which you might have used since you said you're a Raiser, where you could just send out a link and track how much money people donate on your behalf. We also did some fun things like tax Trump tweets, where you could sign a little petition and say every time Trump tweets, we'll donate this much money on behalf of Hillary. So after we have your money, we want to ask you for your time. So the next rung on the ladder is to be a volunteer. And like donations, volunteering also has its own ladder. We want to move you up. So, there's some people who are just, I can only do like 1 or 2 days. We call those pinch hitters, right? And they're going to come in. And by volunteering, I mean making calls, knocking on doors, and texting. They might come in once. Once you come in once, we want to say, great, can you come in again? Can you come in next week? People become recurring volunteers. And then eventually those volunteers come enough times that they become the super volunteers. And super volunteers actually are the ones who are running the field offices the last 4 days of the campaign. And they're actually pretty much like staff. Like they're bringing people in, they're recruiting more people, they're running the whole show. And the goal at the end in all our field offices was to get to like 400 volunteers who would do 3 shifts in 1 day. So what did the tech team build for that? We built tools not only for people who are going to field offices, but also tools you can do digitally. So this was our call tool, where you can view scripts and call people. And we cut these lists based on data we knew already about the people who were observers. And then we used some things like behavioral science, like creating special teams so you felt like a sense of identity of people you're working with. And then you have a leaderboard to actually compete and see how many calls you can actually make over time. We also did a lot of SMS to get people to important information like iwillvote.com about how to register to vote, and like to find out their polling location. And then lastly, on the end, if you've donated, you've given your time, the last people who were most engaged were the organizers, the people who worked full-time for the campaign. So organizers have this lovely piece of software called NGP Van. I don't know if anyone's worked for a campaign before, but it's this giant mess of a piece of software that's been developed over a long period of time. It's very, very feature complete. There was no way the tech team was going to try to reinvent Van and figure out how to create that entire piece of software. However, we wanted to make it easier for organizers to use that. So we did this thing where we built Chrome extensions on top of Van to make it easier to do certain things while using Van as well, to sync things to our website and do a lot of other common actions that needed to be done. So that's kind of the ladder of engagement. And by the time I got to the campaign, let me check my time. Can I actually get a time check? I'm probably at 7 minutes. We're at 7 minutes, 2 more minutes. We had scrum teams for each of these groups already, but we noticed there was a gap between people who were on our listserv, people who were getting our emails, but weren't actually donating or volunteering. And so I joined this team called Engagement Team that was actually like a labs group that was trying to do lots of quick experiments, quick hits to see whether we can move people up the ladder of engagement. And so I'm going to go through really quickly a couple things. This is our team's only like 6 people, and some lessons we learned about designing for experiments. So number 1 was designing around moments. We built some fun things like this Chrome extension where you can, every single day, we highlight a different swing state and give you things you can do, and we direct you to some of the tools that we had already shown. So when you open a new tab, it's always in your face. This is really beautiful. We thought it'd be great. We built it in a hackathon in 2 days and then released it a week afterwards. The problem with this was that we didn't release it around a moment, and not enough people saw it and didn't actually get to the right people's hands. However, another successful product we built was for the debates, and we knew that for the debates there would be lots of people tuning in. We'd have lots of strong promotional channels. And so we built this literally Trump fact checker, where we were able to give the digital team a tool where they can automatically change the front page of the website and pull up quotes. My first week I created a database of like 500 Trump quotes, so I know a lot about Trump, unfortunately, and made a database where they can pull the right quote at the right time to respond in real time to the debate, which this website had over 1 million views on the first night. The day before we had like 10 views, and so it was a really crazy experience to try to scale for these big moments. Lesson 2, I would say, was strong opinions loosely held. The campaign's a huge organization. Everyone has an opinion of what you should be doing. However, things are changing all the time. And so you might have an opinion, but it might be changing, things might be changing, things might be happening. And so it's just you're going to be flexible with what your point of view is. And so this shows, we created this product where you could text Trump. And I was designing this, these are the landing pages. Literally, as I was designing, Trump was changing how he was speaking, and he was trying to act more presidential. So we were changing our brand from like both copy and visuals, treating him like Trump, like a crazy cartoon character, to treating him as really scary and unpresidential, right? And so this is literally like day by day I'm designing, and I'm changing, and because our messaging is changing. And this ended up being a text bot where you could text Trump, and it'll always give you real quotes of things that he actually said.
Wait, so these are his?
These are all his quotes, and you could text source and get the source, and then we'll ask you after 5 or 6 texts, tired of Trump, sign up for Hillary text instead, or donate to us so he's out of the White House. Lesson 3. So when it's all over, this is a quote from her concession speech. This loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it. It's always worth it. And so I had a really rough 2 months after the campaign. I think a lot of you guys probably did too. And I think one of my biggest lessons I took away was, regardless of all the hours I put in, we worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for months. I'm still proud that I did that, even though the result wasn't what we wanted, and I would never regret putting the time in. I think I used to be a designer and engineer who cared a lot about having a very clear metric. If I put this much time in, I will get this result. And I think being in politics, you have to be much more okay with not having that, and taking the risks and knowing that doing what's right is still worth it, even if you may not get the result that you want. I wrote a little article that has some information about like my process after the campaign and like how to find meaningful work and the list of companies I recommend, and like Hustle is great, places that are you can find meaningful work, and so if you're interested, that's on Medium. I also have a deeper case study of some of the work that I did on the campaign too. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suelyn. And just for context, we love questions, and there's going to be some time at the end. So if you have any burning questions, write them down or text them to yourself, and then we'll ask you guys for them at the end. But next, we're going to have Jen. Oh, you can come in. Oh, no? Oh. Okay. Just kidding.
All right. Got the cable? Thank you.
And
I'm good.
Jen's
I'm
going
all
to be giving a talk about scaling in real time with Resistbot.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm not going to use the clicker. I'm going to kind of stand near this. Yeah.
I set this up here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll show you how it works.
Wonderful.
And I just put it down there. Great. Is that position you want?
All right. Oh, excellent. All right. Let's make this nice and bigger. All right. Hi, I'm Jen Aprahamian, and my zip code is 94115. And that might be a weird thing to start a talk with, but it's actually the only two pieces of information that you need to share with Resistbot in order to get started texting your senators. And then as you engage with the bot, you can share more about yourself, and we'll help you unlock more modes so that you can continue to engage and make civic engagement and civic participation a part of your daily actions that is just as natural as texting a friend. So, can I get a show of hands again on who's used Resistbot? Okay, the rest of you are going to use it before the end of this talk. I have like 6 more minutes, so we'll get you in there. Really quickly, high level, Resistbot is a free SMS-based chatbot. There's no app to download. You do it all via text. There's no special forms to fill out or anything like that. We turn your text messages into faxes and now some other things like calls and emails that go directly to your elected officials. And it's designed really as a tool to help ordinary citizens who feel like their voice may not have been amplified as much anymore in the wake of special interests and things like that, and really be able to connect with your electeds and feel like, hey, my story is important and it's being shared. It's built by an all-volunteer team. We do this in our nights and weekends. We're just really passionate about it. And so for some fun technical details, because I know this is there's some technical people in the crowd, we built it with Python, Flask, Go, an open source platform called Rapid Pro, which we'll see in a little bit, AWS, and Twilio's new fax service. So our origin story is really fun. Some of you may have heard the name Eric Ries. He's the guy from the Lean Startup. He's kind of how we got started because one day he tried to call Dianne Feinstein's office and the phones were busy. And he had something he really wanted to get on his mind. I'm sure many of you have had those feelings since the election. And he couldn't reach her and her voicemail box was full. And so a crack team of volunteers got put together to basically bring faxing back. And so, we knew that staffers had access to fax machines, whether, the old-fashioned printing out kind or the more digitized versions, and that this is still a viable way that you can reach your officials and their staffers. And so when the phone lines are busy and the voicemail boxes are full, or when someone's just not taking calls, like some reps tend to do, we kind of carved out an alternate way to engage without having to own a physical fax machine, because I'm not sure how many people have those in their homes anymore. And so we built together basically an MVP version or prototype of a service that took texts and magicked them into PDFs and then faxed them to elected officials. And originally it was going to just be a sort of limited release, let's get this out there and see if it sticks. And it blew up and was kind of amazing. So now we have the Resistbot of today. A little kind of quick rundown of how things work and maybe addressing some of the technical components. When you engage with the bot, you can send the word resist to the shortcode 50409. It's received by the Rapid Pro platform, and you actually interact with the chatbot that we're programming with some basic Python and regexes, and also have the capacity to sort of drag around like a GUI to handle flows. Once the chatbot has prompted you for the things that we need, mostly your name and your zip code at first, eventually your postal address so we can find out who your rep is and other things like that. then all of that information is sent along with the message that you've composed to our API, where we then generate a PDF of your fax. We use the Twilio fax service to send that along to whichever reps, senator, et cetera, that you've sent it to. And then kind of send a confirmation text that includes, actually, let me pop back a few slides. You get a little confirmation printout of an image of the fax that you sent, so you know exactly how it's formatted, what your words look like in real time. So. And it works, and staffers read them, and I was really, really delighted by the timing of this. The screenshot on the right is actually a response that I got today, I think perfectly closing out the story. Diane Feinstein, whose phones were busy and prompted Eric to kind of bring the team together to build this, actually sent me a personal response to a fax that I sent at the end of April. I was asking about whether she supported a specific resolution supporting recognition of the Armenian genocide, and she's like, I'm a co-sponsor of this. And she actually addressed it very, taking the words that I had used and responding to them. And so it felt really good. We've got a bunch of people on Twitter as well who've had that experience, and it feels awesome. And so since then, and Resistbot's been around for just over 3 months. It went live early in March. We've hit some crazy good milestones. We just passed the 3.5 million fax mark. We have, yeah, I know, that's more faxes than you probably thought were ever sent. We literally have brought that technology back. We have somewhere around 700,000 active users that have unique users who've been on the platform, including around 21,000 every day that are active. And just about a week ago, in early June, we soft launched phone calls, so people can kind of have Resistbot as their one-stop shop. So it's been pretty great. We've also added some new targets. You can now reach your governor. You can reach the White House. State reps are coming soon. And there's also many different ways just beyond the original fax that you can engage with your electeds. And it all starts with a text. So we're reinforcing patterns and habits that people have, like texting people every day. And we're turning that into civic engagement. And we're hoping that that sticky feeling of like, hey, I've been heard, my voice matters, not only has impact by actually reaching the officials and telling them how you feel, and sharing your stories, but that it helps propel people up that ladder of engagement that Suelyn was talking about so that they take more actions. But that's enough for the slides. If you have a phone and you want to engage with the bot right now, a little experiment, if you want to text the word hustle to 50409. For some of you, this may be your first action with Resistbot. Of course, I encourage you at a later time to text resist to the bot and start sending messages to the people who represent you. But for right now, if you send the word hustle, you should get something back really quickly. I see cute. I won't spoil what you're going to get. I will kill the slides, though. If anybody needs a reminder, it's 50409. We're going to send the word hustle to it. And then I'm going to expose a little piece of the inner workings of Resistbot. And so I pre-built a little bit of this because I knew I only had 7 minutes. But one of the things that I really wanted to reveal is how easy it is to build something like this using tools, and you don't have to do everything from scratch. Programmable SMS is scary. It's not the easiest thing to get into, but there are platforms and frameworks that are available, and many of them are open source, and you can get started with it and immediately start to build things. And if they stick and if they work, you can propel them into real change. So this is the custom flow, which responds to the hustle keyword that you just texted. So those of you who sent that have seen a cute dancing robot, I hope. And that's in this particular element in the flow. It's our default state. And so basically, the way I like to think of this GUI here is that it works a little bit like a UML diagram. And every interaction that you take, whether it's sending a message or maybe something that we know about you, such as what state you're in, will kind of help you get through the decision tree in terms of how you interact with the bot. It's part of what makes the bot actually feel really personal and realistic. Some people think that the bot's a person, which is kind of clever, but it is a bot. But one of the things that happens, and this is kind of a design solution to a technical problem that we couldn't solve on the fly by spinning up more servers. On the day of the very first healthcare vote, Resistbot got 45,000 new users, which at the time was just more than we'd ever seen. And the traffic was so strong and the number of messages people were sending was so much that we peaked with something like 150 faxes simultaneously going out every minute, which was bananas. And the core team just sort of like was all huddling in Slack like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about this. And so what we decided to do is really lean into the kinds of things that we knew, especially from learnings like Suelyn presented about like how people feel about engagement and keeping them motivated while we kind of put out the fires. And so one of the first moves that we did was to kind of divert the regular message flow. Not for very long, usually just for about a minute at a time, but it's enough to give it a little breathing room. And so the way that we did that, and this is kind of neat the way Rapid Pro works, you can just sort of drag and split randomly is kind of how we chose to do this. And so what I'm going to do here is split into 5 buckets. This all actually kind of converts over to Python code. Like it's essentially just putting a nice user interface to it. But each of these buckets allows us to kind of send a different rotating message to people when they encounter it. So that some people will show up and they'll text resist and it'll immediately go right into message composition. And others will kind of get into a little buffer where we might show them something else for a minute and then they'll go into their message. So we'll kind of start this here. I'm actually going to get rid of this connection. And we're going to send these buckets these new messages. So those of you who texted hustle at the bot a moment ago, in like 30 seconds once I finish drawing these lines, if you want to text hustle again, oops. Oh, nope. I do not want to remove this. Okay, so what we're going to do is have about 40% of you go to that dancing robot GIF, and then out of the rest, we're going to show you something else and have a little small delay before you get to see the robot. Okay, so that's live. This is actually on production. So if you text hustle to the bot right now, you will get one of these. Yeah, I know. Editing in production is something that usually engineers are kind of terrified by, but in this case, it actually helped us to scale in real time and to put a few of these sort of diversion roadblocks in place so that we could support all of the messages and not have people just not get a response. So yeah, if you text hustle with the bot right now, you will get a variation of the my servers are on fire message. About 40% of you will get a variant of our would you like to donate and support our all volunteer free service. And for those of you who get that third option of the message, it does include the phone number for the congressional switchboard in case you really, really want to get your message out so fast and you're just going to call. So, and this obviously predates the call patch tool, which we now have. But yeah, so texting it, basically what we actually set up in the real product is these buckets and these connections are actually sort of fully controllable. So on days of high volume, the day after Comey was fired, we saw something like 90,000 new users and almost 300,000 faxes sent that day. So days of activity spikes like that when we can't really just go on and spin up a new instance on the fly. We have these kinds of tools that anyone on the team can jump in here, drag a few items away, and then point users towards actions that still feel meaningful. You still feel really good about the service, like if you've had a good experience and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'll give you a couple $, and then right out of that, you can go right and give your message. So, yeah, so this is kind of this is one of our little tools that we use, and I thought it was an interesting thing to expose, just because it's nice to have out of the box, but it's run on very real code, and nobody likes looking at API endpoints, so I thought this was a fun thing to show off. So. All right. Well, thank you so much. For those of you who had a nice time with the dancing robot, I encourage you to text resist to 50409 and send a message to your senators, your rep, Jerry Brown, and everyone else. So, thank you.
Awesome. That was great, Jen. So next up, we have our very own Arianna from Hustle. She's not going to be giving a presentation on Hustle, although that would be amazing too. But she's going to be talking about the website she built, donateForDonald.org. If you're like me, you're thinking, what the heck, I don't want to donate for Donald anything. But that is not what this is
that's
about,
a lesson learned. It's a whole thing. Yeah, you try Googling that and see what you get. You're probably not going to find my website, just saying. Okay, so how does this work?
There's a dongle
Do
just up there.
you want to present? I mean.
Yes.
Okay. You can-
Yeah, that was. Or I can just sit down.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, I got it. Oh yeah. There you go. Right. What's right?
Okay. I don't think that'll fit in anywhere. I can go grab my
I got it.
adapter. I also did this.
We are prepared. Oh, you can plug that into your
Oh,
computer.
cool.
And that, do you have the clicker? Oh, here.
How do I use the clicker?
This clicker.
Just front?
Yeah, like, yes,
Forward
exactly.
button, okay. It's telling me it's seeing a keyboard. I assume that's this.
Yeah,
right?
you can exit out of that. You don't need to set it up. It's
Alright,
already
cool.
good. Cool. Let's try this again. Here,
Sometimes
it's
it
going.
takes a
Yeah, it's
second.
going.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, everybody. I'm Arianna, as has been said a few times. I work here at Hustle. A little bit about me before I dive into this presentation. I left NYU to kind of start working on this because I was bored, and then I got a job in politics and tech, which is what I always wanted. So I think that's kind of enough of my background. So that's really all I am. I am those two things. But what I am not is somebody who has a working remote. Okay. So the concept's
It's working.
You got it. All right, cool. The concept's pretty simple. So if you've ever read a Trump tweet, seen one word that you've seen in a million other tweets and been like, yeah, that word really pisses me off, that's basically what made me build this. I realized that for all the times I hear fake news or at failing New York Times, the man's got a very small vocabulary, and that makes it very easy to automate things off of it. So let's go through a few things that you might use this tool for. If he tweets fake news like every day, you might donate $1 because we're conservative to ProPublica. And let me first put out there's monthly limits, so I know he goes crazy sometimes, but maybe if he tweets healthcare, you want to give to Planned Parenthood. Maybe if he tweets Russia, you want to protect journalists. It's probably a good idea. Leakers. Yeah, you should probably protect the people he's trying to prosecute. You can do this. If he tweets "see you in court," which he's done more than once, it's shocking. It's a long phrase. Donate to the ACLU because you know that's probably who he thinks he's going to see in court. So let's go through a bit of a story. So this is actually this morning. Don't let that say anything about when I did this slide deck. So this was yesterday. We see a tweet from the Washington Post saying, "Trump, you're screwed." And what does he do? He reads it, and at 3 a.m. or 7 a.m. his time, he wakes up. Kellyanne's locked outside. She can't get his phone. And he just goes on a little rant. Let's read this one out loud. I think it really adds to it. They made up a phony collusion with the Russian story, found zero proof, so now they go for obstruction of justice on the phony story. Nice. But he's not done. You are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history, led by some very bad and conflicted people. Note how simple the language is. Again, it makes it very easy. Hashtag MAGA. Single greatest witch hunt. Why don't we use witch hunt? So here's a demo. So, this is a word cloud of the words he uses most often. I'll explain a little bit further in the presentation how I did this, but I basically analyzed his tweets and figured out that his vocabulary is indeed very simple. So simple that you read that drop down and you hear Trump's voice. You're like, is that a sentence? Maybe. It could be. Right? It might be. So let's see. There's some great ones that I really like here, like jobs, jobs, jobs. He tweets that so much that it actually pops up and populates our drop down. And then you can view the tweets, so you get an idea of how often he tweets this. So you know, how much money am I really in for if I try to go dangerous and don't set a monthly limit? The answer is probably a lot. Well, so he's tweeted jobs, jobs, jobs 9 times. And as you can see, when you click on one, it'll bring you to that wonderful tweet so you can read some nice replies from the internet. So now, and again, if you click anything here, it'll add it to your trigger, and you'll be able to view those tweets as well. He really says fake news a lot. It's really, I think, his favorite thing. So, let's see how often he said witch hunt. Single greatest witch hunt. We could actually put in single greatest witch hunt, and you would have donated more than once. Those are some of the things that really fascinate me. Another little tidbit, during the election, the only word he used more than Trump was Clinton. I'm just saying, she won more than one popular vote. And so, witch hunt. We should probably protect somebody with this trigger, so let's go to the ACLU. And so now we can select an amount. I have a theory with whenever I design a website is that when you look at the larger websites, like for instance how Hillary Clinton handles their donation flow, they probably have it like that because they have the user research teams to say that's what it's supposed to be like. And so I literally noticed that for some reason every donation site had these little buttons that you could click, and they made this, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have those little buttons. And that's how I do design. There's my theory. So let's say $10. Let's say we're really into this. We're gonna go big or go home. And so now, when you press donate, I think I broke it. So now let's create a new trigger. I clearly broke my own website. So, now it brings you to a flow. I've already added my payment information, not going to disclose my payment information at this stage. Also because it's $10,000, so it's probably not my real one. So this is an interesting thing. So first when I had done this, I didn't have any user flow that showed people where they were. It was really confusing. One of the things I learned is that you need to expose where a user is in the process at all times because conversion is really important on something that you're hoping is going to go viral. If you want people to, as soon as they click on the page, do something, you better make it really easy for them to do it. That's why there's no payment form on the front page. And so here, this is a feature that I don't think any other tool that does this allows you to do is this will automatically reply to Donald Trump tweets. Whatever tweet triggered your donation, you will reply automatically and tell him that you donated while tagging the charity that you donated to. And so it's a fun way and also a kind of social media strategy for me to get this out to people, but also to kind of, poke at him and hope maybe one of his aides reads it and brings it to him at 7 a.m. in the morning. Because really the goal I live with is wanting a cease and desist order from the president. Don't know who else shares that goal, but it's just true. See, that's what I want. I want him to see me in court. And so here you can see that you can toggle the donation and turn it on and off. So let's say that you've donated $10,000 already for Russia. You can turn it off, and you can also create new triggers from here. You can share it, and so the link that it shares with will actually pre-fill the fields on this front page. And so you can tell somebody that if they also want to share for fake news, you can share that link with other friends, and they can go and also share to the same charity, which is really fun. So let's go back to the rest of the slides. Technologies. There are a lot of them. I'm not going to discuss them all now. Basically, it involved using a payment processor because I'm not going to handle any of the legal stuff on my own. I'm also not going to send receipts to people. Emails are hard enough. And so I used this really adorably named, and I promise that's not the only reason I chose them, PandaPay. I would say they're wonderful, but as working with any API or any service, you'll start to dislike the team pretty quickly and bug their support people. So that was probably one of the biggest difficulties was working with somebody who's going to donate for me because I didn't want to become a charity, and so I had to get somebody who's, when people give money, it's automatically tax deductible because every donation that is processed through Donate for Donald, you'll get a receipt for the tax deductible donation, and everything is a 501c3. So yeah, a lot of this involved the Twitter API. We both use the streaming API to listen for Trump tweets, but in order to post Trump tweets, we use the REST API. It's also one of the first things that when I started as a developer, the first API I started using. I highly recommend. It's all this whole Donate for Donald is built on top of an API, so that was the first thing I built. I built from the back end forward, which let me spend way more time on the design. And then currently it's hosted on Heroku, which I think is the easiest way to get started as long as you don't really want to get into the infrastructure part. And that was definitely where I was when I was building this. So a few things that happen here. One fun thing is how it analyzes Trump's vocabulary. So I use a natural language processing library that is able to look through his what I did is I compiled basically text of his last 200 tweets. And so it's always going and looking at what his most recent tweets are. And then from that, it's looking at the words that are most relevant, the nouns and the things that he repeats very often. And then it's basically populating this dropdown with the words that he says the most often. And the reason for that is if people don't have a word off the top of their head that pisses them off when they get to this website, I want them to pick one that's going to make them donate the most because I want these charities to be helped. And so it was very important to do that analysis, not just to find fun things like he talks about Clinton more than he talks about himself, but also because I thought it would be useful for the UI. these interactive word clouds. I literally did it with a website called wordcloud.com. So it's not difficult, guys. It was really easy, and there's a lot of little fun things that I did. Like, for instance, if you go here and you go to /home, don't know why, it'll load his face. And in his eyes, you can see disaster. And in his other eye, you can see VP Pence. I'm not going to read into it, but make your own conclusions. I've heard. So, also another thing that I haven't seen any other websites that do a similar thing do is viewing tweets by term. This means that I store every tweet. Every time he tweets, the first thing we do before we process it for any triggers is we store it in our own database. Why is that? Because when Kofifi happens, we want to have that tweet too. You know what? The man is deleting tweets like a madman. We have to keep them. And so we store, I have like 5,000 Trump tweets in a database right now, and it's a lot of fun. You can learn a lot of interesting things about how the English language should not be used. And then this is the last really kind of cool feature that I think we implemented, which was Twitter auto reply. And this is Alec, who actually used it, and you can see it work. So he must have had the trigger Make America Great Again, which is a good trigger. And then he, as soon as that went off and as soon as he executed a donation, it'll tag the charity, it'll tell you the amount, and it replies to the exact tweet that triggered the donation. And again, this is a great way that when people are scrolling down and like you'll often see the same few verified people at the very top of replies, the hope is you get a few verified people to start using this, and then all of a sudden those are floating automatically to the top of the replies. And so yeah, that's what I built. Feel free to visit it at donatefordonald.org, and then follow. I ironically do not have a Twitter account, even though I like building things for Twitter. But feel free to get in touch with me via email if you have any questions or anything. It's cool. Switch.
Great. That was all really, really awesome. And so before we do anything else, I would love to just open it up for any burning questions that anyone might have. Your questions are more important than my big ones. So if you have any questions, feel free to.
So just kind of based upon the people that have actually worked in politics who are on this panel, I myself have actually worked with not just the same people that you have worked with, but more. To add to that, just as far as more political but philanthropic endeavors, just to make sure that our country hopefully doesn't go the wrong way. How do you see like technology and your efforts being able to actually make a difference in what we see as kind of the, I would like to see that like overall as a society, we see like a positive, change and like a positive, something for the future that we can pass on to all generations, all walks of life. It should be for all people, really. Kind of how do you see technology and politics really racing those two walks of life and actually creating positive change?
I can probably go first about the campaign itself. I think for politics, there's like two areas. There's. Oh yeah.
So from what I understand, I think is how do we see tech and politics embracing two different walks of life together? Did everyone hear that?
Yeah.
Yay! All right, Suelyn's gonna start us off.
Yeah, I think for politics, I think there's two things. There's campaigning politics, which is very different than governing politics. I think separating those things out very clearly is the first thing I would think about. I can speak for campaigns. One thing really on the campaign is that, like, technology, I think we're used to in Silicon Valley being, like, the product, right? The technology is a product you're selling, it's generating the money, it's the main product that your business is about. But in politics, technology isn't that case. Technology, I think, is an enabler, and it's supporting all the other functions. And so the way we structured a lot of engagement is like, the donor team is supporting the fundraising team, and that's really the product of the campaign, or they're supporting the content team. So technology is just in service of other people trying to hit their metrics and their goals, and then necessarily the solution itself.
So something I want to, like a theme that I want to borrow a little bit from Arianna's presentation is the idea of making things really easy for people. And I think tech actually gives us a way to do that, because in some form or another, everyone has access to, and most people are regularly to obsessively using tech, whether that's as simple as an SMS or looking at websites, or the more hyper engagement that we tend to see out here. And so meeting people where they are, and the kinds of activities that they're already doing, I think is the good entry point. And then however you can guide people towards good patterns, especially more empathetic, more helpful patterns, is the strategy. So I know with Resistbot, it's something that we've observed, because we actually have a really amazing data team that's been like just sort of slicing and dicing messages, and just going through all of this anonymous content. And they've actually been doing sentiment analysis on it. And one of the things that I found to be really surprising, but also really uplifting, is that the range of like anger words and the kinds of things that you see on Twitter that aren't necessarily really positive sounding, were absent from those messages. And people were actually making very earnest, impassioned pleas without all the vitriol. And so I think if people in whatever level of engagement they're doing have that kind of sense of, I'm part of this and I'm part of this with everybody, I'm going to let go of some of the toxic words and just speak from my heart. I think being able to engage people when they're in that place is how you can start guiding them towards those patterns.
And have you guys had any kind of engagements around like protected parties who are not allowed to vote because of their personal safety issues, such as like domestic violence victims who can't register to vote because they're not allowed to, like, if they register to vote, it puts them at a personal risk. So these are people who could definitely speak to issues, especially with the Democratic or independent parties, but unfortunately because of their own personal safety issues, they're not even allowed to register to vote because of their own personal safety issues. Is there anything that's been like entertained as far as?
So I can't speak to any specific tools, and I'm sure there might be some out there. I'd actually love to explore what there might be in that kind of range of offerings. One thing I would like to maybe see happen is, for those who don't have, for whatever reason, the ability to vote, is for others to be able to fill in that gap and help them be advocates or, essentially like get their message out in whatever way is safest, and to kind of help share their stories so that others might be maybe more mobilized to vote in a compassionate direction.
And I think the thing that I really hope is that like politics and tech have this symbiotic relationship in which these people who are so passionate about solving things in politics, that makes them want to learn tech. Like that makes them want to learn to code. That makes them want to persevere through a project in which they started off and didn't know a lot of the technologies they end up using. And I think, for instance, that's a problem that maybe somebody hasn't tackled that yet, but if that's something you're passionate about, I think something that I think is really important is equipping people with the skills so that they can, I really don't think the bar to entry is actually a lot lower than people think. And I think that people just, when it comes to politics, they're so passionate about the issues that I really do think it drives them, once they realize that technology can have a huge impact, it drives them to learn the skills that are going to help them both in their career, but also, feeling personally fulfilled by the projects that they take on.
Absolutely, and we have a question right up in front.
Totally relate to that, so thank you. Yeah, thanks to all of you, that was great, and sorry I missed part of it. Sort of boring technical question for Resistbot.
Yeah.
I started using it pretty early on.
Yeah.
But I'm also a member of Indivisible SF, and so we work on making our call scripts like really targeted for specific MOCs with specific issues. It's like if there's the vote in the House on healthcare, there's no point in texting Feinstein about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually stopped using Resistbot because at least at that time I didn't have the ability to target my messages at a specific MOC. So I don't know if I was wrong about that, or if that's changed since
No, it's okay. If you used it at the beginning, that was not available.
Okay.
So sometimes being an early adopter, opens you to the, sort of the uglier, more prototype version. The bot's evolved a lot since, so I'm happy to tell you that. Basically at this stage, you can not only target specific reps, but you can also choose the medium in which you reach them. So if you know that, for example, like you want to get through a call today to your house rep, the bot will recognize who that is and call patch you through to them, so you don't have to look up their number. Likewise, if you want to send something to all of your members of Congress, you have the flexibility to do that. So yeah, we do have more advanced targeting now. I'm really happy about that.
I'll jump back on.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. But that is really important, and I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I think it is important to know that like the kinds of stories that you want to share should kind of have like a personal meaning to whoever's going to vote on it, and also should be your authentic story. And I think that's really a good way to get people to maybe change their mind, or at least feel that they're not being spammed.
I think I saw one in the back. And if you don't mind speaking up, since we opened up the window.
I'm loud. My question was like really around how do you think about prioritizing projects? Like obviously in an ideal world we wouldn't be in the current cycle, which is like sort of persistently requires responses. But like how do you think about like launching a project or trying something new when like you can't really choose the timing?
I can start. I first advocate finding a friend, because in the moments that you're not motivated, guilt will guide you through because you'll think they're really motivated to finish it. So I can definitely say that helped me a lot in kind of pacing out my projects. But another thing is just, I think that it's very much about like the political moment, and like you just have to roll with the motivation that you have at that time. Like if Donald Trump is tweeting a ton, like I definitely remember waking up to text from like I had an if this then that alert on every text, and every time I'd wake up to an email I'm like, oh god, I have to start working now. And so I think a lot of it is just making sure that what you're working on you're either really passionate about or it's timely and it's going to pull you through. But I definitely think also just making sure that you kind of, if you need help, you like bring in a friend who's like really versed in an area that you're not, and you'll find it's like a really symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, building on that, like the timing, I think that's really my biggest learning is like there's planned moments and there's unplanned moments, and you can probably make a list of both of those right now, right? Like what are the planned moments? We know there's special elections, right? There's going to be governor races in Virginia and New Jersey like coming up in the year, and then there's like 2018, right? So you can list those things out, and then there's unplanned moments, right? Like what's he going to do next with Russia, right? Like what's going to happen to the Paris Accord? Like, we kind of know things might happen, but we don't know exactly when. And so you could design products around those two things, knowing that you'll get an audience at a certain point.
Yeah, I think there's something also to be said with necessity being the mother of invention. Sometimes the timing finds you, and when you get those unexpected moments, it can drive you towards things that you didn't think you were capable of doing, especially that quickly. I know that's true for a lot of Resistbot.
Great, we're gonna go right up front and then right here.
I had a question for Arianna. Do you know what the total donated amount is so far?
So right now I haven't been pushing it too extensively, so I'm not sure, but it's probably pretty low. I mean, I think right now I need to really focus on, after I built it, I haven't done a big like social media push, but right now I'm actually going to be buying Facebook ads, and so I think within maybe a week I'll have a much better number to remember, yeah.
Did you know that each Facebook employee gets $250 of Facebook ad credit to play around with per month?
That's incredible.
And then have you thought about doing a bingo with donations for Donald, where you pull out the keywords and do bingo?
To do what?
Like bingo, like you get a bingo
Yeah.
card based on what he's tweeting and the words. Bingo.
And then you can hold yourself to a higher donation amount too. Like if I get a bingo this week, $250.
It's
Gamify it.
It's really interesting when I think of how I gamify the platform. Like I think it's just like I built a drinking game. Like I don't know.
That's great. That's awesome. Awesome.
I have a question for Resistbot. So, did you guys build that GUI? Maybe this is like a really newbie question, but
No, it's not. That's fine. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a two-part question, but that's one part. So.
Yeah. So we didn't build RapidPro, but it was actually built by. It originated with UNICEF. There were a lot of volunteer organizations, mostly doing charitable work in Africa, and they needed text-based tools. a lot of things for field work and follow-up. And so they, along with another like team of consultants, kind of built this product, open sourced it, and made it available. That said, Resistbot has pushed the limits of it, so we have been responsible for a lot of their feature development, just kind of incidentally. I think the same thing happened with Twilio Fax as well. Like, we were just kind of like, so we're doing this, and we need this. What can we do here? So.
And as far as your operating costs, is that purely right now on donations?
It is running on donations right now.
And is that the same for everybody here, pretty much? Or I guess you guys all have different platform types.
Yeah, so for me, most of the percentage that comes off of donations goes to our payment processor, which is, I think, when you use a credit card, 3.9%. We take 10 cents flat fee on every donation, but a majority of it has just come out of my pocket because I don't mind and it's worth it.
Campaign was around donations.
I was wondering, do y'all have one, talks online, two, if not talks, your PowerPoints, and three, information about your tech stack for your respective products?
Just repeating the question, it was if they have their talks online, their tech stacks online,
and or PowerPoints.
or PowerPoints online.
Yeah.
So I know this is being taped, so the awesome thing is that this particular session will be online later. I don't have the deck online, but I'm happy to put it up there. And I know Resistbot has a blog that actually drills way more into stuff, including some of the really cool data analysis, and you can see heat maps and things. And that's way cooler than I could fit into 7 minutes. So yeah, definitely look that up.
I don't right now. I've done many iterations of this, but I have a case study on my website, so suelynu.com. I'll probably put on Medium too. That goes into much more detail of my projects and like more about the roadmap development process and design process for the campaign.
Yeah, so obviously see the presentation when it comes out on video, but also I'd be happy to share my slides with anybody, and I'm planning on open sourcing the code for Donate for Donald once I extend it so that it can be used for any Twitter user, because the code was written that way, so why not do that? So. Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to go here and then right here.
Thank you so much, guys. So for Resistbot, you mentioned some of the user feedback that people were less irate than you thought that they would be. So for all three of you, do you guys have data on, or have seen trends on how people react to your engagement models, or like the way that they use the tech, and what are just some interesting trends?
I think one of the kind of most uplifting things that I've noticed about Resistbot is that we've been able to guide it towards almost in a completely self-sustaining model with donations, because people see value in the service. The other thing I really love is that most of our users re-engage and continue up the ladder, to the point that we have to come up with clever things for them to unlock through the gamification process. That's always fun when we're like, oh, someone's already sent like upwards of 50 faxes and several letters and several calls. What can we do to delight them today? So that's an observation that kind of makes me feel really good. But we also have a very vocal and active feedback channel. There's a feedback keyword, and anything you type at that goes directly into a Slack channel, and all of us see it. And so there's a real human reading all of the feedback and hopefully incorporating it into the product itself.
On the campaign, we used Heap a lot to track like front-end analytics, and that was pretty much how we tracked like all of our usage. I would say that most of our products that I worked on were, I would call them almost like experiential marketing products, right? Like they wanted to get you in, they got out pretty quickly, and then they moved you up the ladder. And so in that sense, we weren't tracking like long-term qualitative, behavior change and like engagement with it. And so it was mainly through key analytics.
One thing I want to say, which might not sound very positive, is conversion's really hard for a website that asks for your payment information. That is a thing that I definitely learned. Going forward, I'm planning to kind of figure out how I can shuffle around where we ask for payment information to increase conversion. But I notice is that even people who would share it doesn't necessarily mean they'll sign up. They're very interested in the concept and they find it very funny. But I think the thing that I found most difficult is kind of how do you get people to want to take that slacktivism to the next level? And I think the thing I'm really trying to figure out is there a market for it or not? Like, are people really willing to give their credit cards for something that they don't maybe even when they first hear about the service, know that there's a concept of a monthly limit. Like, how do you let people know that this is not something that's going to bankrupt them while letting them know it's something they want to do anyway? And that's kind of definitely been a challenge, but I think the biggest thing I've seen in kind of the data is that we get a lot of page views, even shares from people who don't even necessarily sign up, and I don't know if it's a factor of shifting around UI or if it's really just how is this model supposed to work, and how do you convince people and give people the right information up front so that they're like, oh, I would be comfortable giving my payment information and being on the hook for the next time Donald Trump tweets fake news.
I can share you some of our experiments.
Wonderful.
Yeah, organizations. Yeah.
Well, what other issues do you think in politics should be addressed by tech?
So the question was, what other issues in politics should be addressed by tech?
I think I said like there's a difference I think between campaigning and governing. People say that campaigning is the easy part and governing is the hard part actually, and so I think that there's all the issues of actually implementing policies. So I have friends who worked at places like ETNF or NAVA or places like who went to go save like healthcare.gov's website when that went down, right? So you spend all this time trying to elect the right people, but if you can't actually use tech to implement the policies that you try to get health insurance to everyone that needs it, that's not necessarily worth it. So I think I'm more interested now in the governing side of things. Like I now work for a company that helps public school districts figure out how to process teachers getting hired faster or just like people getting paid on time, things like that. So I would say on that side, the governing side is where we need more help.
I could not agree more. My day job's actually at Code for America, where we do focus on building tech for government service delivery. And I think while politics is interesting and it's something that can be very excitement driving, day to day we all have to live with government, and so we might as well have it work for us. So I would love to see more expansion into the kinds of things that help people get access to the things that they're supposed to get access to, and maybe cut through some of the less necessary bureaucracy.
I think that tech should really, in politics, have a role of providing visibility to things you otherwise wouldn't look at. Like, for instance, I once wrote something that scraped all of Breitbart and looked for when there was basically when Muslim or a word about Islam would exist next to a violence, like a word that would evoke kind of an image of violence. And I think that I never would have read 300,000 Breitbart headlines, but when you typed in a word and you saw what images they most often had associated with headlines that had the word Muslim in it, you start realizing how they use those kind of really manipulative means to get people to believe what they believe. So I think one thing I really like to see tech and politics do is really help pierce that bubble. I think we all get really insulated and comfortable, especially living in San Francisco. But the people who believe the things that they read on Breitbart don't necessarily believe them because they're bad people. They believe them because they're worded to make you believe them and to feed a bias that they already have. And so I think where tech is capable, I think tech should really expose that bias in a way that is really data driven, and you can see like, oh, every time they use the word Muslim, there's a picture of violent, like there's a really violent picture. The pictures they use of Hillary Clinton, like in headlines, really shocking stuff when you see it tiled across a website. And I think that those kind of realizations, because tech is like, you can get very easily, you can build something that scrapes that kind of data. You have access to those data sets, and I think the more people are able to understand from them, I think we'd really learn a lot. Yeah.
So we're going to take our final 2 questions. I thought I saw another one over here. I would love to hear you again, but just giving them their chance. So 1 and 2, and then after we can just stay and chat.
Awesome. Actually, I have a follow-up question on what you were just saying about like. So the thing that strikes me about a lot of the stuff you guys presented is it's very insular. Like for people that already are trying to resist and don't like what's going on, it's great. But there's a lot of people there's a handful of people that are swing voters. There's a lot of people on the other side that don't live in San Francisco. So how do you guys see tech as a way? So I think you gave one great answer, which is like, let's use tech to show what's going on. But are there other ways that you can think of where you can use tech to try to bridge the divide and help people see things outside their bubble?
I don't know, actually, to be totally honest. Like, I came back out of this campaign not sure where tech is in terms of doing that. I actually think tech is more isolating and people in their echo chambers more. I think that technology that facilitates people-to-people communication is the way to do that. I don't think technology is going to bring people together. I think that it's going to support people connecting with each other.
I definitely agree. I think anything that helps us I mean, it sounds a little bit antithetical to making tech, but any tech that helps you do more in-person interactions, where you can shed those things, the shield of the Facebook bubble, if you will, and have a real conversation with someone face-to-face, I think is going to be really imperative. So I do actually kind of like that, even though it's unrelated to politics directly, I like that we're seeing a lot more tools that help people connect with each other. Like, as silly as it might sound, like the fact that people Snapchat videos of each other or like FaceTime with each other, I think that's the kind of tech that will honestly be most effective in piercing those kinds of things, because it reminds you there's a human.
I think the biggest thing that tech has as a barrier to kind of bridging that gap is the trust problem. People don't think about how people view AI. They think it's robots that are going to come take their jobs. Maybe it's true. But like the problem is people don't oftentimes understand technology, and what we've noticed about this political climate is people all of a sudden, when they become uncomfortable, they go to what's comfortable, which is news sources that confirm their biases. And so because people don't trust what they don't understand, I think it's very difficult to assume that anybody would stumble upon any technical tool that will reveal something that seems magical to them, and then they'll be like, oh, I never thought about it that way, or oh, this tool's so helpful. I think people are very mistrustful of things right now, and the only way to really do that, I think that's why Hustle's such a great product, is because people trust other people, and they wouldn't trust that if there was a bot communicating with them and they could tell it, but when they hear another person, it really does humanize that connection, and I don't think there's really much to automating that connection. I think the best thing you can do is get people in touch with other people.
I'm going to briefly actually address that question and then ask mine, because the Wall Street Journal built a tool that was like red state, blue state, so you could see what the other feed was saying, but I felt like no one used it because a lot of people would ask for it, and like they would ask for a tool like that and sort of didn't know it existed. So
yes.
I guess right on with what everyone said, that person to person is kind of what like people actually believe and trust, and realize there's a breathing, walking human being who actually believes the other side of things is sort of eye-opening to a lot of people. What I wanted to ask was sort of mostly for the Resistbot woman, but also for everyone, that it seems like with most things that are happening in government, there's a moment for certain opinions, actions, like a bill will be going through, and so then it's time for the senators to think about that. Or there's something being written, so it's time for the representatives to think about that. Do you do anything around, or like, is there any way to do anything around getting the right information to people, or sort of like getting people to tell the stories that are most pertinent at the right time? I don't know, it seems like a hard problem, but I wondered if you guys have thought about it.
It is a hard problem. It's actually a feature that's coming very soon in Resistbot. We're sort of testing it right now. It's basically, we've got some really amazing volunteers that just joined the squad who are policy experts, essentially. And some of them have been writing blog posts for us, but kind of in the way that, if you're familiar with the Skim, how it's kind of shrunken things down into more bite-sized things, we'd love to be able to, for people who opt into it, deliver sort of pertinent, like, hey, here's what to speak up about today, if you're not really sure. So far, what we've seen with a lot of engagement is that people have plenty of inspiration from the news, but that's not always going to be true. And we don't want people to drop their habit of being a participant and speaking up about what they care about just because things aren't completely on fire. So it's a tool that's going to be released very soon. I was actually testing it the other day. It mostly sends GIFs right now, but it's going to do something cooler.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, great.